My name is Madison Carter, and at 31, I finally have the apartment I saved 7 years for in Boston. Last week, my parents called with that familiar tension in their voices. My brother Tyler had lost $75,000 in Kamwai crypto and needed a bailout, but this time their request left me speechless. They wanted me to sell my apartment to rescue him. Again, my entire life's work for his fourth financial disaster. Before I tell you how I stood my ground, let me know where you're watching from in the comments. If my story of family financial drama sounds familiar, hit that subscribe button to join others who understand toxic family expectations. I grew up in a modest 3-bedroom home in suburban Massachusetts, with oak trees lining our street and neighborhood barbecues every summer. My dad, Robert, now 63, worked as an accountant at the same firm for 30 years before retiring last year. Mum, Linda, has taught 3rd grade at Oak Ridge Elementary for over 2 decades. We looked like the perfect American family in our Christmas cards, but appearances can be deceiving. From my earliest memories, it was clear that Tyler, my older brother by 7 years, operated under a different set of rules. When he crashed his first car at 16, my parents dipped into their savings to buy him another one. When I turned 16, I worked weekends at the local bookstore to save for my vehicle. "Your brother needs more support," my mother would explain whenever I questioned the disparity. "He's sensitive and struggles with confidence." Meanwhile, Tyler partied through high school, while I maintained a 4.0 GPA that went largely uncelebrated. College showcased our different paths even more starkly. I worked 20 hours weekly at the campus coffee shop while carrying a full course load. Student loans covered what my scholarships didn't, and I lived in the cheapest dorm available. Tyler attended 3 different universities before dropping out junior year, each time with full financial backing from my parents. "He just hasn't found his passion yet," my dad would say, writing another check for Tyler's apartment near campus. After graduation, I lived with 4 roommates in a cramped apartment and took the bus to my entry-level marketing job. Every dollar possible went into my savings account. Meanwhile, Tyler launched his first business venture, importing luxury watches that turned out to be counterfeits. When the legal troubles came, my parents refinanced their home to cover his attorney fees and restitution. "Family helps family" became their mantra whenever Tyler created a new crisis. At 25, I received a promotion and a modest raise. Within a week, my parents called to discuss Tyler's credit card debt. "He's family, Madison, just this once," they promised when I reluctantly contributed $3,000 from my emergency fund. 6 months later, it was his failed restaurant concept. Another $4,000 from my house down payment fund disappeared. Then came his gambling debt at 28, where I was pressured to loan him $12,000 after he showed up at my apartment at midnight, crying about threatening messages from his bookie. None of these loans saw repayment. When I gently brought up repayment plans, I was labelled obsessed with money and lacking compassion. Meanwhile, I lived frugally, meal prepping on Sundays, buying clothes from thrift stores, and declining vacations with friends to save for my dream, home ownership in Boston. Last year, that dream finally materialised. After 7 years of disciplined saving and a well-deserved promotion to marketing director, I purchased my 1-bedroom apartment in Back Bay. Nothing extravagant, just 800 square feet, with original hardwood floors, large windows overlooking a tree-lined street, and most importantly, mine. The day I received my keys, I sat alone on the floor of my empty living room and cried with pride. No one from my family attended my small housewarming gathering. Tyler had a financial emergency that weekend requiring my parents' attention. For the first time in my adult life, I felt financially secure. My retirement account was growing, I had rebuilt my emergency fund, and I was making extra mortgage payments when possible. After years of constant anxiety about money, I could finally breathe. Then came the call last Tuesday night. I was enjoying a rare moment of relaxation, curled up with a novel and herbal tea, when my phone lit up with my mother's name. Her strained voice immediately signalled trouble. "Madison, we need to talk about your brother. It's serious this time." Those words had preceded every financial catastrophe in our family history. I felt my hard-earned peace crumbling as I pressed the phone tighter against my ear, unaware that this time they were about to ask for something that would change our family dynamic forever. Tyler made some investments that didn't work out, my mother began, her voice carrying that familiar blend of anxiety and exhaustion I'd heard countless times before. My father's voice cut in from the extension. It's that cryptocurrency nonsense. He put everything into some coin that collapsed overnight. I sank deeper into my couch, already calculating what this might cost me. How much did he lose? The pause lasted just long enough to send warning signals through my body. $75,000, my father finally answered. I nearly dropped my phone. 75,000? Where did Tyler even get that kind of money to invest? Another painful silence followed before my mother admitted. He took out loans, used his apartment as collateral, maxed out his credit, cards. He was convinced it would multiply quickly. The story unfolded like a familiar movie I'd seen too many times. Tyler was facing eviction from his luxury downtown apartment, his Mercedes was scheduled for repossession next week, and creditors were calling hourly. He'd already received final notices on most utilities, and bankruptcy seemed inevitable. We've helped as much as we can, my father continued, his voice breaking slightly. We used the last of our accessible retirement savings when he needed bail money last year. I closed my eyes, feeling the weight of what was coming next. But nothing could have prepared me for their actual request. Madison, we've thought long and hard about this, my mother said. You need to sell your apartment and loan him the money. The words hung in the air as my mind struggled to process them. Not contribute what I could afford. Not help with a payment plan. Sell my home, my achievement, my security. That's not possible, I whispered, my throat tightening. This apartment is everything I've worked for. It's just a place, my father countered, his tone hardening. Family is what matters. Tyler could end up homeless. In what world is it reasonable to ask me to give up my home for Tyler's mistakes? I asked, my voice rising despite my effort to remain calm. I've already loaned him nearly $43,000 that I've never seen a penny of. Blood is thicker than water, Madison, my mother responded, invoking her favourite guilt-inducing phrase. When family needs help, you step up. Your brother would do the same for you. I bit back the obvious retort that Tyler had never stepped up for anyone but himself. Instead, I recalled the 3 previous major financial bailouts I'd participated in, each one promised to be the last time. Each one followed by Tyler's social media posts showing expensive restaurant meals and weekend getaways while I ate ramen to rebuild my savings. He's your brother, my father added. He's struggling with addiction issues. This isn't entirely his fault. The gambling addiction excuse had emerged recently, yet Tyler refused treatment programs while continuing to frequent casinos. It had become another tool to justify endless financial support. I can help with some expenses, I offered, already hating myself for giving an inch. Maybe a few $100s toward his utility bills until he finds work. That's not enough, my mother snapped. This is serious, Madison. We're talking about your brother's life here. As they continued outlining why my sacrifice was reasonable, I was single with fewer responsibilities. I could easily find a rental in a cheaper neighbourhood. My furniture would fit anywhere. I felt the familiar guilt and obligation wrapping around me like chains. I need time to think, I finally interrupted. This isn't a small request. Tyler doesn't have time, my father countered. The eviction notice gives him 30 days. After several more minutes of pressure, I reluctantly agreed to a family dinner that Sunday to discuss options. As I hung up, my hand was shaking. The walls of my beloved apartment seemed to close in as I imagined losing it to cover Tyler's debts. The bitter taste of injustice filled my mouth as I realised my parents saw my greatest achievement as simply a resource to be liquidated for my brother's benefit. That night, I barely slept, torn between lifelong family loyalty and the growing realisation that I might need to protect myself from the very people who should have been protecting me. Sunday arrived with grey skies and drizzling rain that matched my mood perfectly. I drove the 40 minutes to my parents' suburban home with knots in my stomach, rehearsing phrases from boundary-setting articles I'd anxiously read all weekend. Mum had prepared pot roast, my favourite childhood meal, a transparent attempt to soften me up. Dad poured wine while making forced small talk about the neighbour's new fence. The familiar kitchen with its faded yellow curtains and collection of refrigerator magnets from family vacations now felt like hostile territory. Tyler arrived 20 minutes late, offering no apology. Despite his financial crisis, he wore designer jeans and a brand new looking leather jacket. His eyes avoided mine as he gave our mother a quick hug. "How are you holding up?" I asked him directly. He shrugged, immediately checking his buzzing phone. "Been better. This crypto thing was supposed to be a sure bet." We settled around the dining table, the tension thick enough to cut with the serving knife my mother wielded with nervous energy. Dad cleared his throat after a few minutes of awkward eating. "So, we've worked out a plan that makes sense for everyone," he began, as if the solution had already been decided. "Madison, if you list your apartment this week in this market, you could close within 30 days. After paying off your mortgage, you'd clear enough to cover Tyler's immediate debts and have some left for a rental deposit somewhere more affordable." I put down my fork, appetite vanishing. "You've already calculated how to liquidate my home?" Mum jumped in. "We're just being practical. The longer we wait, the worse Tyler's situation gets." "I've found some nice apartments in Quincy," Tyler added, sliding his phone across the table to show me listings for places half the size of my current home, with twice the commute to my office. "You've been apartment hunting for me?" I asked, incredulously. "Without even asking if I'm willing to sell?" "We know it's a sacrifice," Dad said, "but it's temporary. Tyler will pay you back once he's back on his feet." "Like the $43,000 he already owes me?" The words escaped before I could filter them. Tyler's face darkened. "I'm good for it. You know I've had some bad luck." "Bad luck. Or bad choices," I countered, emboldened by the absurdity of their expectations. Mum's hand slammed against the table, rattling the silverware. "That's enough! We're not here to criticize your brother. We're here to help him." "By destroying my financial security," I pointed out. "What's the timeline for repayment? What guarantees do I have?" My parents exchanged uncomfortable glances before Dad replied, "We can figure out those details later. The important thing is acting quickly before the eviction." I took a deep breath. "I'd like to understand exactly what happened to the $75,000 before we discuss my apartment." Tyler shifted in his seat. "It's complicated. The market's volatile." "Try me," I insisted. After probing deeper, the truth emerged, in fragments. Tyler had initially invested $20,000, then kept borrowing and investing more as the values dropped, convinced he could recoup his losses. Classic gambling behaviour. "What about your car?" I suggested. "If you sold the Mercedes, that would cover at least some of your debt." Tyler laughed dismissively. "I need reliable transportation for job interviews." "You could buy something more economical with a fraction of what you'd get for it," I pointed out. "This isn't about my car," Tyler snapped. "This is about you being unwilling to help family." As the conversation continued, I noticed Tyler checking his phone constantly, smiling at incoming texts. When he stepped outside to take a call, I questioned my parents. "He seems awfully upbeat for someone facing financial ruin." Mum sighed. "He's been seeing someone new. Amber. She's been a real support during this difficult time." When Tyler returned, his cologne freshly applied, I asked about his weekend plans. "Actually," he grinned, "Amber and I might do a weekend trip to the coast. She says I need to clear my head after all this stress." "A vacation, while asking me to sell my apartment to cover your debts?" I couldn't mask my disbelief. "It's just a mental health break," he defended. "Amber found a deal online." The argument escalated quickly. I suggested therapy for his gambling issues instead of another bailout. Tyler accused me of being judgmental. Mum cried. Then came the moment that broke something fundamental in our relationship. "You've always been selfish, not like your brother," Dad said, his voice cold. "Tyler would give you the shirt off his back if you needed it." The unfairness of this statement, after a lifetime of being the responsible one, after all I'd already given, struck me like a physical blow. Tears burned in my eyes as I grabbed my purse and keys. "I need to go," I managed to say. "If you walk out now, you're turning your back on this family," Mum called after me. I paused at the door. "I've supported this family more than anyone has supported me. I need time to think." The drive home was a blur of tears and anger. For the first time, I truly questioned whether my family's love was conditional upon my usefulness to Tyler. The realization was devastating. The morning after the disastrous family dinner, I called in sick to work. My normally organized thoughts were scattered, and the weight of my family's expectations made it difficult to focus on anything else. I needed perspective beyond the suffocating family dynamic I'd been trapped in for years. Rachel, my best friend since college, met me at our favourite coffee shop near Boston Common. Unlike my family, Rachel had celebrated every milestone with me, including the champagne toast we'd shared. "On my apartment's empty floor the day I got my keys." "They want you to do what?" she exclaimed after I explained the situation, her voice loud enough to turn heads at nearby tables. "That's not just crossing a boundary, Madison. That's demolishing it, setting it on fire, and dancing on the ashes." Her outrage was validating. For so long I'd accepted my family's warped sense of obligation as normal. "Am I being selfish?" I asked, voicing my deepest fear. "They keep saying family helps family." Rachel's eyes narrowed. "Family helps family? Works both ways. When has Tyler ever helped you? When have your parents prioritized your needs over his?" I couldn't recall a single instance. "This isn't help anymore," Rachel continued. "It's enabling. And they're asking you to destabilize your entire life to continue the pattern." Later that week, I met with Carlos, the financial advisor who had guided me through my home buying process. His office overlooked the harbour, a reminder of the stability I'd worked so hard to achieve. "Selling now would be financially disastrous," he confirmed after reviewing my situation. "You've barely built equity, you'd lose money on closing costs. Twice over, and you'd be giving up a fixed mortgage rate that's better than anything available in today's market." He leaned forward, his expression serious. "Madison, I've seen this pattern before with clients. Family financial entanglements rarely end well, and they almost never end with just one sacrifice. If you sell now, what happens when Tyler needs money next year?" The question lingered with me as I sat in Dr. Mitchell's office the following day. My therapist had been helping me work through career anxiety, but today's session took an unexpected turn toward family dynamics. "What you're describing sounds like a lifetime of emotional manipulation," she observed after I recounted recent events. "Your worth in the family seems tied to your utility to your brother." "They'd say I'm being dramatic," I admitted, "that it's just about helping someone in need." "Healthy help doesn't impoverish the helper," Dr. Mitchell pointed out, "and healthy families don't consistently sacrifice one member for another." That evening, I researched family dynamics and enabling behaviour online. Articles about Golden, child syndrome, emotional manipulation, and codependency describe my family with uncomfortable accuracy. I joined an online support forum for adult children of manipulative parents and read stories that mirrored my own experience with eerie similarity. One forum member suggested documenting patterns of behaviour to maintain clarity during emotional confrontations. I created a spreadsheet of every loan I'd given Tyler, including dates, amounts, promised repayment timelines, and actual outcomes. The total, $43,200 over 8 years, was staggering when viewed in aggregate. Out of curiosity, I checked Tyler's Instagram. While supposedly facing financial ruin, he had posted photos at an upscale restaurant the previous night. The caption read, "Life's too short for cheap wine." Another post showed him and a blonde woman I assumed was Amber shopping for weekend getaway essentials. Each resource reinforced what I had known intuitively, but had been conditioned to ignore. This wasn't about family helping family. This was about sustaining Tyler's lifestyle at my expense. The pattern wouldn't end with my apartment. It would continue until I had nothing left to give. With newfound clarity, I drafted a response plan. I would meet with my family once more, but this time I would set the terms. The meeting would happen at my apartment, my territory, where they could see exactly what they were asking me to give up. I would present facts, not emotions. And most importantly, I would establish boundaries that protected my financial and emotional well-being. As I prepared documents and practiced articulating my position, I felt a strange combination of terror and liberation. Standing against a lifetime of conditioning felt unnatural, but for the first time, I was fighting for myself with the same determination I'd always shown when working toward my goals. The night before our scheduled meeting, my mother called to check in, a transparent attempt to soften my resolve. "We're just trying to keep the family together," she said. "Sometimes sacrifices are necessary." "I agree," I replied calmly, "but they shouldn't always come from the same person." The silence that followed told me my newfound perspective had caught her off guard. As we ended the call, I stood at my apartment window, looking out at the city lights of Boston. Tomorrow would change my family relationships forever, for better or worse. But one thing was certain. I would no longer set myself on fire to keep Tyler warm. My apartment had never looked better. I'd spent hours cleaning every surface, arranging fresh flowers on the dining table, and setting out photos that documented my journey to home ownership. If my family wanted me to give this place up, they needed to truly see what they were asking me to surrender. I prepared a folder for each person with printed documentation, a timeline of Tyler's financial crises, copies of transfer receipts for previous loans, and a breakdown of the financial impact selling my apartment would have on my future. The facts were undeniable when presented in black and white. When the doorbell rang at 6 o'clock, my heart raced, but my resolve remained firm. This was my home, my territory, and for once, my terms would dictate the conversation. Mum arrived. First, immediately commenting on my extravagant building lobby. Dad followed, eyeing my furnishings with a critical gaze. "All this space for just one person," he remarked, though my apartment was modest by any standard. Tyler arrived 20 minutes late with Amber in tow, an unexpected addition that immediately altered the dynamic. She was younger than I'd expected, perhaps mid-20s, with designer clothes that contradicted Tyler's supposed financial distress. "Hope you don't mind," Tyler said, without waiting for a response. Amber's been my rock through all this. I served the lasagna I'd prepared, maintaining composure as Amber complained about the lack of vegan options, which no one had mentioned, and Tyler checked his phone repeatedly under the table. The disrespect was palpable, but I remained focused on my plan. After dinner, I invited everyone to sit in my living room. "Before we discuss anything, I'd like to establish some context," I began, distributing the folders I'd prepared. "These contain relevant information about our financial history and the current situation." "We don't need paperwork," Dad interrupted. "We need solutions for your brother's crisis." "The paperwork is part of finding an appropriate solution," I countered, maintaining eye contact. "Let's start with the facts." I walked them through the documented history of Tyler's financial emergencies and my contributions. Over the past 8 years, I've provided $43,200 in loans that were never repaid. That's more than half my annual salary money that would have accelerated my own financial goals. Tyler shifted uncomfortably, while Amber examined her manicure with exaggerated boredom. "We're aware you've helped before," Mum said dismissively. "This situation is different." "Is it?" I asked, producing printouts of Tyler's recent social media posts showing expensive restaurants, shopping sprees, and vacation planning. "These were all posted after you told me he was facing homelessness." Colour drained from my father's face as he examined the evidence. Mum refused to look at the images. "Everyone deserves small pleasures," Tyler defended weakly. "You're making me sound like some kind of criminal." "I'm not judging your lifestyle," I clarified. "I'm questioning why I should sell my home to maintain it." The conversation grew increasingly tense as I presented Carlos's financial analysis, showing how selling would derail my financial future. When I mentioned therapy resources for gambling addiction, Tyler exploded. "This isn't about gambling. The crypto market is volatile. Everyone knows that. I just got unlucky with timing." "Tyler," I said gently, "you've lost money on gambling. Failed businesses, luxury purchases, and now crypto. The common denominator isn't bad luck, it's choice." "Easy for you to say," he snapped. "You've always been the perfect one, judging everyone else from your high horse." Amber chose this moment to interject. "Tyler tells me you've always been jealous of him. I think it's sad you won't help your own brother when he'd do anything. For you." The absurdity of this statement from someone who'd known nothing of our history almost made me laugh. Instead, I stayed focused. "I've compiled some alternative solutions," I continued, distributing another document. "Tyler could sell his car for approximately $30,000 and purchase a reliable used vehicle for much less. He could move to an affordable apartment rather than his luxury building. I've found 3 financial counselors who specialize in debt management and cryptocurrency losses." Tyler's face reddened. "So your solution is for me to downgrade my entire life while you keep your precious apartment?" "My solution is for you to live within your means, like everyone else has to," I replied. As the reality of my refusal became clear, my parents exchanged glances before Dad delivered the ultimatum I'd been dreading. "Madison, I don't think you understand the severity of this situation," he said, his voice cold. "If you don't help your brother now, you're choosing not to be part of this family anymore." The threat hung in the air. For a moment, the old fear gripped me. The terror of losing my family's approval, of being cast out. But then I looked around at my home, built with years of sacrifice and discipline, and found my voice. If family means I have to destroy myself financially to enable behavior that hurts Tyler in the long run, then maybe we need to redefine what family means. Mum began to cry, while Dad's face hardened into a mask of disapproval. But what happened? Next surprised everyone in the room. Tyler suddenly put his head in his hands. "She's right," he whispered, his voice breaking. "I messed up. Again. I don't just have bad luck with investments. I can't stop gambling. The crypto was just another bet." The admission hung in the air, a moment of unexpected truth amid the tension. "I need help," he continued, not meeting anyone's eyes. "But not the kind that involves taking Madison's apartment." Amber stood abruptly. "I can't believe you're caving to her," she hissed, before grabbing her purse and storming out. My parents, however, remained unmoved by Tyler's moment of vulnerability. "This doesn't change the immediate financial crisis," Dad insisted. "Madison, you need to step up." In that moment, seeing their determination to sacrifice me regardless of circumstances, something broke and reformed within me. "No," I said simply. "I won't sell my apartment. I won't give Tyler more money. I love you all, but this pattern ends today." "Then you've made your choice," Mum said, standing to leave. "Don't call us when you realise how selfish you've been." As they gathered their things to leave, Tyler lingered behind. "I'm sorry," he whispered, seeming genuinely remorseful for perhaps the first time in our adult relationship. But he still followed our parents out the door. I stood alone in my apartment, shaking with adrenaline and grief. The family I'd known was walking away because I'd refused to set myself on fire, to keep them warm. The pain was excruciating, but beneath it lay something unexpected. A sense of liberation, of finally breaking free from chains I hadn't fully recognised until that moment. That night, my phone rang repeatedly with calls from my mother. Each voicemail escalated in emotional manipulation, first concern, then disappointment, then outright threats about family loyalty. For the first time in my life, I didn't pick up. I didn't rush to make peace. Instead, I whispered to myself the words that would become my mantra in the difficult weeks ahead. My worth is not measured by what I give up for others. The days following the confrontation were the hardest. I moved through my routines like a ghost, second-guessing my decision during sleepless nights. Had I been too harsh? Was family harmony worth the sacrifice they'd demanded? The lifetime of conditioning that equated love with compliance didn't dissolve overnight. A week after our confrontation, my father showed up unannounced at my office. Seeing him standing awkwardly by the reception desk sent a jolt of anxiety through me. We walked to a nearby cafe where he wasted no time getting to his point. "Your mother is devastated," he began. "She barely sleeps. Is your stubbornness worth destroying her health?" The old guilt tactics that had always worked before, but something had fundamentally changed within me. "Dad," I said calmly, "I'm not responsible for Mum's emotional reaction to my reasonable boundaries. I love you both, but I won't discuss selling my apartment again." His expression hardened. "We raised you better than this. Family comes first." "Family should support each member equally," I countered, "not repeatedly sacrifice one for another. So you're just abandoning your brother when he needs you most? That's your idea of family?" I took a deep breath, centering myself. "I've offered to help Tyler find financial counselling. I've researched addiction treatment programs. I'll support his recovery in ways that don't involve giving him money or selling my home." "That's not enough," my father insisted. "It's all I can give while still respecting myself," I replied. "And it's what will actually help Tyler in the long run." As he left, his parting words were meant to cut deep. "Don't bother coming to Thanksgiving if this is your attitude. Your mother couldn't bear it." Instead of crumbling as I once would have, I drove straight to my therapist's office for an emergency session. Dr. Mitchell helped me process the interaction and reinforced that healthy boundaries often face the strongest resistance initially. "Your family is experiencing withdrawal from the dynamic they're accustomed to," she explained. "Your change disrupts the entire system. Their pressure will likely intensify before it improves." She was right. The next 2 weeks brought escalating attempts to break my resolve. My mother left tearful voicemails. Extended family members I rarely spoke with suddenly called to check in and suggest I reconsider my position. One aunt even suggested I was suffering from mental health issues for refusing to help family. Through it all, I maintained my position with increasing confidence. When my mother called late one night, I answered but ended the conversation when it turned manipulative. "I love you, Mum, but I won't discuss selling my apartment. If you'd like to talk about anything else, I'm here." The call ended abruptly, but something significant had occurred. I had maintained my boundary without guilt or apology. Meanwhile, I focused on building my support network. Rachel and other friends provided the emotional backing my family had withdrawn. My boss noticed my distraction, and after I explained the situation, shared his own experience with financially manipulative relatives. "Standing firm hurts initially, but saves everyone in the long run," he advised. 3 weeks after our confrontation, the most unexpected development occurred. Tyler called, asking to meet for coffee without our parents' knowledge. We met at a quiet cafe near my office, where he arrived on time and sober. 2 rarities. "I broke up with Amber," he began awkwardly. "Turns out she was more interested in my spending than me." I nodded, unsurprised but unwilling to criticize. "I've been thinking about what you said," he continued, "about patterns and choices." He pulled out a crumpled brochure for Gamblers Anonymous. "I went to a meeting yesterday. First time I've admitted out loud that I have a problem." Pride and cautious hope stirred within me. "That takes courage, Tyler." "I'm not asking for money," he clarified quickly. "I actually got a job. Nothing fancy, customer service at a tech company. The pay is decent and it has health benefits. That might cover some therapy." We talked for over an hour, perhaps the most honest conversation we'd ever had as adults. He admitted feeling trapped in the golden child role, simultaneously entitled to help and ashamed of needing it. I shared how our family dynamic had affected my self-worth and financial security. "I'm selling the Mercedes," he said as we parted. "You were right about that. I don't need a luxury car to be happy." I offered to help him research reliable used vehicles within a reasonable budget, assistance that supported his positive choices rather than enabling destructive ones. As Tyler began his slow journey toward responsibility, my parents maintained their emotional distance. The threatened Thanksgiving exclusion became reality. I spent the holiday with Rachel's family instead, experiencing for the first time what a healthier family dynamic could look like, one where love wasn't contingent on compliance. My father's birthday in December became a pivotal moment. Despite our estrangement, I sent a thoughtful card and gift. He called that evening, his voice gruff with emotion. "Your mother still needs time," he said, which I understood as his way of saying he was ready to talk. "I'll be here when you're both ready," I replied, but my boundary about financial support remains firm. "I've been reading some of those resources you sent," he admitted reluctantly, about enabling and addiction. Some of it makes sense. It wasn't an apology, but it was a crack in the wall between us, a small acknowledgement that perhaps my perspective deserved consideration. As Christmas approached, Tyler invited me to attend a Gamblers Anonymous meeting with him as a supporter. Sitting in that circle of people courageously facing their demons, I felt genuine hope for my brother's recovery for the first time. Afterward, he showed me his 30-day sobriety chip, with pride I'd never seen in him before. "I'm working on a repayment plan," he told me. "It'll take years, but I want to pay back what I can, starting with small amounts." The sum wasn't important. The acknowledgement of responsibility was everything. As we parted, he hugged me awkwardly. "Thanks for not giving me what I wanted," he said. "I needed someone to finally say no." By standing firm on my boundaries, I had begun to forge a new kind of relationship with my brother, one based on mutual respect rather than financial dependence. The path forward with my parents remained uncertain, but for the first time, I faced that uncertainty without sacrificing my own well-being in the process. The first month after establishing my boundary was the hardest. I alternated between confidence in my decision and crushing guilt about the family fracture. Some mornings I'd wake up reaching for my phone to call my mother and apologise, to offer some compromise that might restore peace. But each time I'd remember Dr. Mitchell's words. Healthy boundaries feel uncomfortable at first because you're using muscles you've never developed. I leaned heavily on my chosen family during this period. Rachel invited me for Sunday dinners, replacing the ritual I'd lost with my parents. Colleagues became confidants. My neighbour Thomas, a retired psychologist, offered wisdom from his porch over evening tea. These connections reminded me that family could be defined by how people treated each other, not just by blood. Therapy became my anchor. Dr. Mitchell helped me recognise that my grief was valid. I was mourning the family I wished I had, while setting boundaries with the family I actually had. "Both can exist simultaneously," she explained. "You can love your family and still protect yourself from harmful patterns." 6 weeks into our estrangement, my mother sent a text message that simply read, "Miss you." Not an apology or acknowledgement, but a small opening. I responded with equal simplicity. "Miss you too." We began exchanging brief, neutral messages. Weather updates, neighbourhood news, safe topics that rebuilt connection without broaching the conflict. Meanwhile, Tyler's transformation continued to surprise me. He'd moved to a modest apartment, sold his luxury car for a practical sedan, and maintained both his job and his attendance at support meetings. One evening, I received an unexpected email from him with the subject line, "Accountability Plan." The message contained a spreadsheet outlining a repayment schedule for the money he owed me, beginning with $25 weekly, a small amount but significant in its symbolism. "I know this doesn't fix everything," he wrote, "but I want you to know I'm serious about changing the pattern." I printed that email and kept it on my refrigerator as a reminder that people could change when given the opportunity to face consequences and grow from them. 2 months after our confrontation, my parents cautiously suggested meeting for coffee. We met at a neutral location, all of us visibly nervous. The conversation started with awkward small talk before my father cleared his throat. "We've been seeing a family therapist," he said, the admission clearly difficult for him. She's helped us see some patterns we weren't aware of. My mother reached across the table to touch my hand. We're not saying we understand everything yet, but we're trying to learn. It wasn't a complete acknowledgement of how their behaviour had affected me, but it was a beginning, a willingness to examine the dynamic rather than simply demand my compliance with it. I appreciate that, I said genuinely. I'm still working. Through things too. We established new tentative parameters for our relationship. Sunday dinners would resume, but without financial discussions. They would respect my boundary about money, and Tyler, even if they didn't fully understand it. Progress wasn't linear. There were still tense moments, like when my mother casually mentioned Tyler's struggle to pay his electric bill, clearly fishing for my offer to help. Instead of reacting defensively, I simply said, "That sounds difficult. I'm sure he'll figure out a solution," and changed the subject. The old pattern lost power when I refused to engage with it. By the 6-month mark, our family had established a new normal. It wasn't perfect, but it was healthier. My parents still occasionally slipped into old habits, but now I had the tools and confidence to maintain my boundaries without anger or guilt. More importantly, they were beginning to respect those boundaries, even when they disagreed with them. Tyler's journey had its setbacks, a brief gambling relapse after a stressful work period, financial struggles as he lived within his actual means for the first time. But unlike before, he faced these challenges without expecting bailouts. When he asked for help now, it was for guidance or emotional support, not financial rescue. The 1-year anniversary of our confrontation arrived with a significance no one could have predicted. We gathered for dinner at my parents' home, the same table where everything had exploded 12 months earlier. Tyler brought a small gift, bag, and placed it before me with uncharacteristic nervousness. Inside was a set of keys on a handmade keychain. "These are copies of my new apartment keys," he explained. "Not because I expect you to help with anything, but because I'm proud of my place for the first time. I got it on my own, live within my budget, and wanted you to see it." My parents watched this exchange with quiet reflection. Later, as we cleared dishes, my father spoke privately to me. "You were right," he said simply. "Enabling him wasn't helping. We just couldn't see it." That night, as I returned to my apartment, the home I'd fought to keep, I felt a profound sense of peace. My building keys still hung by my door, a daily reminder of boundaries maintained and self-respect preserved. The journey had been painful, but the outcome was worth every difficult moment. My family hadn't become perfect, but we'd broken a toxic cycle that would have eventually destroyed us all. Tyler was building genuine independence, my parents were learning healthier ways to show love, and I had discovered my voice and worth beyond what I could provide to others. Sometimes the bravest form of love is saying no to those who would drain you dry in the name of family obligation. Sometimes the greatest gift we can give others is refusing to participate in patterns that ultimately harm them. And sometimes, by standing firmly in our own worth, we create the opportunity for everyone to grow into healthier versions of themselves. Have you ever had to set difficult boundaries with family over money? I'd love to hear your stories in the comments below. If this resonated with you, please hit that subscribe button and share this video with someone who might need to hear that it's okay to protect your financial well-being, even from those you love. Remember, true family supports your growth, not just your giving. Thank you for listening to my story, and I wish you strength in your own boundary-setting journey.